Alright, in order that you could follow along and take apart, I have brought this along as far as the foundation and knee walls. And I wanted to review that with you before I got too far carried along with the structure above the knee walls. Now try to remember what I was doing when I saved these slides. Right, this was just putting it over the, essentially right where the deck is. And really that's what I run with, mainly because that's what it shows on some of these estimates, approximately that size. It actually might show it a little smaller. I'll double check that. And I did double check it, and the quotes show, both of the quotes show structures that are 20 by 14, presumably out to out. We're going to actually end up with, from the face of this brick to the outside of the greenhouse, 22'6", and then out to out 14'6". So a similar width that they were showing, 6 inches wider, but 10% longer in any event, at least the way I've progressed so far. But the first thing that we could see right away is that this wall, something has to happen either with this wall or that wall. And obviously that would be probably maybe easier. Also, just so you know, there's not going to be an alignment through here unless that wall moves that way. There's not going to be an alignment of this system with this, unless this system were reconstructed, and then they would be misaligned this way, if that matters. So that was, you either move the structure, assuming you keep about that width, you either move the structure downward, and even 3 foot, there's a lot of tension right there. This is better, but I don't know that that's the best way to interface it with the building in the first place, and I just want to show you that because I already knew the alignments were going to work out much better with this up here where it belongs, it's going to become necessary to do something with that retaining wall at the points below here. So that was where I began, and this was approximate sizes. I want to make a quick review of the sun situation, because I read through this whole Solar Innovations pamphlet, and they wanted the ideally the greenhouse, the orientation of the greenhouse. This here is within 20 degrees of true south, and we're 40 degrees. This orientation puts you 40 degrees, which is not too bad. These are the sunrise and the sunset angles. I mean, if this matters to you, I needed to look at it to see how things are going to be. But at winter solstice, it's coming up in this angle, and at summer solstice, it's starting over here and wrapping all the way around. Sometime midday, I can't remember what time it starts leaving you and not getting sun over there. In any event, this situates up very nicely here in a variety of ways, and we're just going to explore this octagonally ended one in terms of the knee walls. It's very simple to just make it square as well, and we will definitely do that, or we might be remiss. I'm a little concerned that this octagonal shape may compete too heavily with this tower, but I think probably be okay. But we will look at it and see. Now ignore this area up here for now. We'll deal with that later on. This shot here though is to demonstrate that how much mass, how much of this is coming up out of the ground, so how strong of an influence it's going to have it. And obviously we're not going to leave this concrete come all the way up. And I think this is from the street. So you get a feel for how this structure is coming out of here, and I think that either an octagonal end or a square end is going to be very easy to adapt to this, particularly given how Solar Innovations puts together the structure. This roofing back in here, as near as I could tell, is not going to be a problem. And now, and this would be its exposure from the street. As you approach from that end, I think this is what we're going to work with here for just to go through this. And there are several series of slides, and they all arrive at the same conclusion, but I think it's one way to see how things are going. This next little couple is just the sun going around the building. I want to see the how it was going to be. This is in the morning when it's coming up, as you saw in the earlier diagram, and then this is as soon as it gets past that point, and this all becomes in shade here. This is still getting sun on this side, and this is as it comes around to this west side. So there's a lot that comes through here, apparently. But we're going to use this general exposure to light everything going forward. And as I said earlier, I think we don't have a lot of choice in what we use on this material except stone and brick. This board and batten or stick and wattle, or whatever you want to call it, up here is, traditionally should be used like it's used here. So I don't know that we can pull that sort of a situation down here. I don't think we cannot. With all of this foundation wall coming up out of the ground, we're going to have to use some other treatment on there. Either stone and brick, or perhaps this could be brought down here. I will have to see how that looks with the greenhouse structure. But otherwise, brick and stone seems the choice going in, or seemed the choice going in. That is a lot of stone over there. And I'm going to go to this elevation quickly here for a minute. From an elevation standpoint, maybe all that stone is okay because of all this brick over here. And I think we can look at it a lot of ways. Now I have planned or am showing this as authentic stone because of everything else being so authentic on the house, in spite of it being built in 1980. Right away, get rid of the concrete, so something's got to come down. Now, you could probably explore imitation stone alternatives and see how well we're going to. I arrive at the idea that we probably should use something like that on the interior walls for thermal mass, kind of help to with accumulating some thermal energy with the sun exposure. And I begin to like this wall, or I began to like that wall divided or mixed, knocked down a lot of that stone. Probably, I think, maybe even a little bit more of this, a little bit more brick, a little less stone. But we shall see. And you could see as soon as we, this was a tall structure here, but I was just at the early mapping that out, where the entire structure was 18 feet high, and we had 11-foot walls here and 13 foot just to this. This is a grand solarium type thing. We will not explore that unless directed. But going back or moving to the next thing, this is what more or less they were showing from Solar Innovations, these sorts of dimensions here. Their 1411 dimension was shorter because they didn't have our higher pitch accounted for in that, so that's going to increase that expense. And then from the elevation angle in this direction, that was the grand structure, and that's just 18 to the very peak, and that obviously could go bigger than that with the knee walls down through here. This was more or less the structure that Solar Innovations has already quoted, something like this, and you can see there will be some sort of roof structure back here, presumably glass. But so far it situates itself up pretty well to be located here and interfaced. The foundation walls and the slab floor for inside the greenhouse, and from outside elevation view. Up close then, there's the 2-foot knee walls. I'm hoping for an alignment with this existing stone here. I don't remember. I mean, I modeled that pretty close, so. But this was that Solar Innovations, approximately they had shown shorter because they didn't have that same pitch, 712. So I don't think we're going to have a problem putting together a decent looking structure for this. And now I will return to a different progression viewed from this angle, or where we were before, as that was the sun situation. And then we built that down, adding the brick, a lot of stone, and particularly if that's authentic stone, it's probably less expensive to have brick laid than it is stone. And at this point here, I don't show that, but I think we could bring that stone down another 8 inches, or even 12 to 16 inches. This, I lowered the entire thing, so after this, I brought these knee walls down to 24 inches inside, which is approximately what they were showing on their drawing as well. And we may as well, this is so beautiful looking out this way, everywhere really. So the more view, the better, even if your tables are coming up above the bottom of those windows, your working tables. And I apologize, this is kind of haphazard, but maybe just like in court, everything will, you'll get a whole picture at the end. And this was just a progression driving down the road, what our exposure is going to be, or your exposure. This is a progression of building what has to happen up here and working with the rest of this. That was with it all stone, and this was now shown as a 12-inch foundation wall. This is going to be a 12, whatever new wall has to go in here, and I think that's a foregone conclusion for the project. Is going to be a 12-inch wall. So these bottom ones are 12s, so that they're holding this 4-inch authentic stone. If that's something else, if that's an imitation stone, then some of that can be reduced in sizing. Oh, and I did want to mention, for what it's worth, there's a tree here. I'm assuming that's coming down. I mean, that's what you've said. But this foundation does not intrude on that tree. And if it mattered, if a person wanted to, it's conceivable that borings could be made and this could be just piered here to avoid the tree roots. But my assumption is the tree's coming down. And this is the knee wall height. I think this was about 28 when I was showing it here, and I brought it down to 24 with this brick cap, and that's when I got rid of it. And see, that brick, I think the brick needs to come down 2 or 3 courses, maybe even a little bit more. Reduce some of that stone exposure in favor of more brick, I think would be the safer bet. Once I did get to those 24-inch walls, 24-inch wall height, this floor was level with that. I'm assuming you would want that down at least 1.5 inches. That is what I've done. This is your existing deck level out here where it is, and that's going to remain at that level. And so the way I've set it up, unless you tell me that you want it a little differently, you step down 1.5 inches into here just to provide a dust or mud barrier or whatever from that room to this. And then it's down about 6 3/4 inches to this deck area here. And so this is moving that floor down. The floor of that room gets moved down the 1.5 inches, like that. And then starting to fix up this wall here. This was not arbitrary where I decided to cut that. That is right where the existing deck now steps down, as I recall. And you've got to just barrier back that soil. That's kind of flexible depending upon what it looks like when the building is done. But cutting that wall, I have it cut there, I know that now, and you'll need probably a return on that wall. So you're down from the dining room floor 1.5 inches to here, another 7 inches or so to here, and then to make sure you're going to be able to transition to this, your pathways to your bird feeders. And I think this is one of the bird feeders is out here. I have another step down, another 5-inch step or 5.5, whatever it works out to, where that is smooth here. Now this is still that wall in its same place. It'd obviously be taken out for construction, but you wouldn't have to rebuild a lot of these pathways down. It'd be beyond right in here, and you'd still probably put this wall back at some location. Coming a little closer on that then, yeah, that's what, depending upon I've modeled this soil pretty closely to what it's going to, or what it exists, and so that is, I think, will work. And you'll just have to get your pathway. This assumes a walk up here around without stairs up. Yeah, a person could probably conceivably cut some sort of stair in here if they want to increase their expense. Like you could probably come up through here with a stair, but otherwise it's a walk up around here, and I'm showing this about 40 inches wide right here. And then on this final east side, the brick is brought down to the level of the deck. You can see the deck is all one level across here, and maybe this stone comes in here a little bit further down here, but this, presuming we're using authentic stone on this, hopefully we do something like this to kind of make this flow together a little better. The rest of it's lending itself to it. The entire project so far is lending itself to what we want to do. Now, I had said earlier that I was showing this imitation stone on the inside of this to help with thermal energy accumulation. That doesn't have to be like that. This can be anything, but it does, again, as out here, lends itself to possibly interfacing with this, depending on how well we can do with this imitation stone matched to your existing. And this next to last section is the floor plan, showing some dimensions, what I ended up with. Come in here, and 23 feet out to out on the brick foundation, on the knee wall foundations, and 15.5 out to out this way. Your existing step down, the existing wall, and that's where I'm proposing it be cut, so you end up with about 6'9" in here. With regard to a door, there'll be several decisions you'll have to make calls on. How big a door? Is it just going to be a single leaf swing door? Solar Innovations makes pivot doors, lift and slide, bifolds, almost anything you want across here. I, for the moment, am showing the minimal of a 32-inch single leaf door that swings in. For this review anyway, you will let me know where we want to go with that. In this, I'm showing an alignment down through here because there's going to be ranking through here with the greenhouse frame structure, so that's going to have some alignment with the door, and then all of that is going to have to have an alignment with what's happening outside. On the swing of the door now, I've increased that door to a 3'0" door, a large single leaf 3-foot door. And where you locate that, this was with its alignment as I showed down through here, and early that's kind of what I'm preferring, maybe either here or with this edge aligned here, so shifting that way another 3 or 4 feet, 3.5 feet. But if you leave it right where it is, there is some argument with those doors there, not that they can both be opened at the same time, but technically they are fighting one another a little bit. Shifting it that way, as I mentioned earlier, is maybe preferable. A little less introduction here, but it would still work very effectively, I'm sure. But we will take a look at that going forward. In here, by the way, my proposal, we're not going to disturb any of this and bring this door up any higher than this. Maybe this ceiling is lifted a little bit, and this is just a cased opening here with the door going through. Let me see if I can show you that a little bit better. What I've done is created just a well through here. This just becomes dead space that's hidden. These are solid wood jambs that go all the way through this 14 or 15 inch section. maybe this is a different kind of floor covering here, a different kind of tile, or different wood oriented in a different fashion to this. But that was what I had mapped out preliminarily, including leaving that roofing structure outside. We'll talk about that as we get further along. That can, certainly that can be something different than just a vestige. But I think it's perfectly fine to just leave it as it is, and redoing that wall above it as necessary for the greenhouse structure. But we can certainly explore eliminating the roof and doing something more, for lack of a better word, elaborate out here on this facade. Now the final bit is just a couple little rotations around the outside with that structure, with that knee wall structure. Thanks, and look forward to the next section.